Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Bonus Points podcast. I'm Joe Garrett, as always being joined by Ollie Guy.
Oi oi!
Oi oi Ollie! Exciting one because the game that we're talking about today is a winner already. We haven't even put it on the list, and the reason it's a winner is because we did a video a little while ago, you may have seen, called the Hype Train something or other, where basically a lot of people from the community suggested games that we should do on the podcast, and we narrowed them down to a single winner for a game that we were going to discuss, and that game was the game we're talking about this week.
Yes, it was Goodboy Galaxy, which was so new and so niche, it doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, Joe. So I had to do some
you know what?
other research.
I know that because I always go up and just to double check the release date and developer name and stuff. I was literally just looking for the Wikipedia page and couldn't find it.
Yeah, so I mean release date, I don't know when. I think it was maybe December last year.
Yeah,
I'm not
that's
sure.
what I saw.
The developers we've got as Rick Nicole and Jeremy Clark, who my understanding is they're English. They're from the UK.
Yeah,
Sounds
at least
cool.
Rick here. Yeah, no, they both are from the UK, although they met in the Netherlands.
Oh, okay. I downloaded their press kit and it was said that, they're founded in the UK in 2018. But shall I read what their website says the game is?
Yep.
Okay, so help Maxwell explore unfamiliar worlds, make strange new friends, and contend with mysterious forces. Maxwell's homeworld is nearing collapse. In a last-ditch effort to find help, he hyperjumps where no dog has gone before. Stranded, he finds himself at the edge of a hostile system. If there's any hope of return and rescue, he'll need every friend and every weapon he can find. Like all underdogs, the odds are stacked against him, but you can't keep a good dog down. The game is made for Game Boy Advance, and you can currently get it on Game Boy Advance, with ports to the PC and Nintendo Switch coming soon.
So I listened to a interview with Rick Nicole, and he said in it that because they basically said what genre is the game, and he said they avoid saying Metroidvania because although it has kind of a lot of similarities, there's some sort of expectations with that which this game doesn't have. So he described it as an exploration-based platformer, which I think kind of explains it quite well. But I guess I'd kind of add shooter as well, maybe platformer shooter.
Yeah, I would say it's a tricky puzzle platformer. It was surprisingly tricky. I think it's not like a puzzle platformer that's you've solved the puzzle, so therefore it's going to be easy to do. It's you solve the puzzle and you also need to be good at it in order to pass. That's kind of where I would put it. Was it what you were expecting?
No. It wasn't it was. In some ways, it was. In other ways, I think because one of the things is because there's not a huge amount of content about this game. There's a lot of games that even if I haven't sought out to find out about them, just through osmosis, you end up knowing about them. Baldur's Gate 3, I never sought out any content about it, but I kind of knew exactly what I was getting in for just because of conversations around it, whereas no one I know at least has been talking about this game. I've not heard anyone on a podcast mention this game,
same.
I kind of looked through their web page with you
yes
and saw those little clips and screenshots, and then that was all of the knowledge I was going in for. So I was constantly surprised by what this game was throwing at me throughout.
Yeah, let's quickly just run down for people who aren't watching the video version. I'd say first of all, the closest podcast game we've done to this is probably Caro Blaster. It's quite similar in a few different ways, I think, with the emphasis on the weaponry, but basically it's a 2D platformer. It's got a very unique kind of level structure and progression through the levels, which is the first time I've ever seen it done like this. But basically, essentially what you're doing is you're playing lots of mini worlds that every time you enter the world, you choose which door you want to go through and it removes one of your abilities, which is either a big jump, your shield, or your gun. And then you basically play through a little puzzle platformer section, and at the end of it, you get that ability back, and that gate counts as cleared. And it may be 100% cleared, or it may be, mostly done, but if you go back for it again another second time, there might be something else.
Yeah, so that they kind of mark it with an exclamation mark if there's something for the critical path that is still left to do in like on that like loop. I almost kind of consider it's like each gate is almost like a loop where you always end up back to the beginning. They'll mark it, but then beyond that there's like loads of like hidden secrets, like you're collecting cassette tapes or finding friends, and you collect their friends cards as well. And so a lot of that stuff's optional. Some of it at the end of the game turns out it wasn't as optional as you first thought it was. But yeah, I think that's a pretty good description. But then there's constantly things like twisting that. There's a lot of like kind of one-off unique mini games or boss fights, like little kind of mini cutscenes, story moments. Like it's for a Game Boy Advance game, like it's not a basic game by any standards. I think one of the, apart from the format of the game, the things that surprised me was just the level, like the production value of this game throughout, like the amount of unique songs, the amount of kind of different styled planets that you go to with different like art palettes and like these mini games. It was a game of a much bigger scale than I was expecting. Like I thought this was going to be like, you know, a step above like a prototype or a proof of concept. I was like, oh no, this is like just a full big game.
Yeah, so it's worth mentioning that this game was designed with the Game Boy Advance in mind first. So it runs on an actual, if you had an actual Game Boy Advance and you had an actual cartridge, you could play it. Even though it released last year.
And you can order a cartridge, or at least you could have. I don't know if you still can now.
Well, as of April 5th this year, Joe, GBA carts are being manufactured after a delay. So now's the time.
Oh, were they delayed?
If you ever wanted to order one, yeah. So, and then they're releasing an enhanced version on the PC and the Switch. It's a bit different. I think it's got a bit better graphical effects, a bit better music, because the music doesn't have to be compressed, and it's widescreen. But that's the crazy thing about this game, is that it's running on a Game Boy Advance, because it's like... It's ahead of anything I've ever seen on the Game Boy Advance. I wouldn't say it was like a generational leap or anything, but it's definitely the best looking Game Boy Advance game I've played. Yeah.
Do you know what? Because when we were discussing about which game to choose, and we ultimately chose this game, Goodboy Galaxy, like I think one of the reasons we chose it is because it's being released on this super old hardware, and like I thought that was going to be really interesting. But one of the things I realized is actually, it's kind of like not one of the most interesting parts of the game, because playing it, especially for me, because we were both playing on our analog pockets, which are these little machines that can. Oh, you're more prepared than me. For video viewers, there's always one. So basically, like we were playing like the emulator on that, but I was obviously playing to record my footage, so I was playing it docked with a controller. So I played a lot of this game on the big screen. And the game looks and sounds and runs so good. It just almost got to a point where it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, I might as well be playing the Switch or the PlayStation. Like, it kind of, the fact that it was made with these, like, hardware limitations just didn't matter, because they managed to perform so well. And in this interview, they were talking about all the tricks they did and how, like, if they, like, reversed, like, a sprite, then it wouldn't be counted as a different sprite. Like, all these little, like, tricks they are able to do. And then the other thing I didn't realize is, he was saying about how people kind of think of the Game Boy Advance kind of similar to like the SNES or the Mega Drive. And he was like, no, it's actually like way more powerful than that. Like it's way more powerful than people think, the Game Boy Advance. Because I thought it was less powerful than like the SNES, but I didn't realize it was actually a step above those kind of home consoles.
Yeah. No, I'm very familiar with the Game Boy Advance, but I was still thoroughly impressed by what they've put out on this. Like, the amount of animations and like little custom things, and like even when you see some of the mini games have like big sprites, and they kind of like have really perfectly aped the style of the Game Boy Advance. Like, it looks like a Game Boy Advance game, like not just because of the hardware limitation, but like back when the Game Boy Advance was big, when it first released, because it didn't have a backlit screen, the sprites all kind of had to look a certain way so you could actually see them. And like they've actually aped that perfectly with this game. Like, it was really recognizable seeing like the chunkiness of them and being like, oh yeah, I can see exactly what it is that you've gone for.
But how else would they have done that? Like, isn't that just down to the hardware? Like, that's just the best way to do it?
No, like some of the stuff they did, like if you look at Game Boy Advance games, the characters quite often have like quite thick outlines, because they had to really stand out, because there was no backlight. They had to really stand out against the background. That's like the main giveaway that something's a Game Boy Advance game rather than a SNES game, is you'll see a sprite and be like, oh yeah, he's got like a white outline or like a thick black line around it. And also the large sprites, even though obviously they're detailed because they're made with the game with the small screen in mind, they tend to be quite a few colors. So like the main character's a really good example of that, because he just has a blue is he blue? I mean, I changed the color of mine. I can't remember what he is originally, but he has like a blue spacesuit, I think.
I think it's. I also changed the color of mine, but I think he is originally blue. I think.
Yeah. I went purple in the end. But yeah, like very, very impressive and good sound as well, which is hard to do on the Game Boy Advance. But it also has good music and good sound effects.
Yeah, they did a very good job of having very in-your-face music with relatively short loops because of the hardware. But at least for me, I didn't get annoyed. Like, the music's really good. They do a lot of stuff with, like, kind of like the pan, like switching between, like, headphones. Like, if you're playing headphones in, like, because as I said, I played a lot of it on the TV. Then, like, when I was kind of traveling and playing it with headphones in, and like, there was a lot of like, oh wow, this is like next level. This music is really cool and like quite like comical, some of the music. And then there were some songs that reminded me of, like, I think the best comparison is Terraria. For those that know the Terraria soundtrack, I think that's kind of the most similar kind of contemporary example I'd use to compare.
They also do that cool thing that Yoshi's Island, not Yoshi's Island, sorry, Mario World does, where when you jump on Yoshi and it adds like another layer to the song. In this game, when you lose one of your abilities, it will play like a slightly different version of the same song, which goes a long way for like not making the loop super annoying. Because you tend to do 3 loops per level, so if you imagine, they've kind of cut the music down, repeating by a third, like by 2/3, by just doing that. So it's pretty cool. There was one song that did start to grate on me a bit, which is they used a few times, which is that one that's like clung 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 clung. Clung, 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 clung. I used it like in the prison and in one of the original areas, and I got stuck on that for quite a long time.
Oh yeah, that will make it hurt. Yeah, but that reminds me of when we were talking about Portal 2, when they were saying about when someone's been on the same level for a long time, they gradually quieten the music so it doesn't get annoying.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I also like while we're on music. When you're fishing and then when you catch a fish and like the music goes like crazy because you're like spamming like the A button and like the music goes crazy is good. And then also the song for like there's a hotel where you're like basically you can collect creatures and then they get displayed in the hotel, and the song was just quite funny and silly. I really liked going to the hotel just to like hear that music and look at my collection of creatures.
Put it on in the background. I can't remember how it goes. Put it on.
It's on right now. They're bopping to it while we talk.
So the other thing the game has, which was surprising to me, I didn't realise, is that you get quite a lot of new weapons. So you get like, and also the weapons you get, I think they're quite interesting considering how standard they seem. Things like the shrink ray is actually like, oh, okay, that's actually quite an interesting idea because you make yourself smaller and you can fit through gaps, but you can also make enemies smaller, kill them quicker. And things like shooting it into an enemy nest makes it come back out and hit you, so you don't need to use... Because that's another thing in the game, is they have these like crazy, like you shoot a shrink ray bolt through a maze and it will bounce around and you've got to be like, where's it going to come out? I need to make sure I'm standing underneath it.
Yeah, so if you think of like the classic like kind of Indiana Jones like light with mirrors puzzle, like where, like that's sort of like where you shoot it across angles.
Yeah, and then you get the drill as well as a drill that gives you like kind of new movement abilities. So like when you lose your jump, when you have the drill and you drill through something above you, you'll kind of fly out the top of it so you can get a bit of height off the top. Just, they don't all have 2 uses, but they have enough uses to them that's like, oh, this is actually interesting beyond being like, this is now the gun that I'm going to use because it's the best gun.
Yeah, no, I think they all, I mean, because even just the one which is like power shot or whatever, it can destroy blocks. Because that's kind of where the Metroidvania comparisons come through, is like you'll be playing through a planet for the first time and you'll be like, oh, there's these hedges in the way that I can't break, or there's these like strong blocks or whatever obstacle it is in the way, and then later on you'll get this new gun ability and then you'll be able to break your way through them. And sometimes that will be for the critical path, and sometimes that will just be, oh, I can go back to a planet I was at before and now I can kind of tick off all of these places that I had seen but not been able to get to yet.
And the warp gun, the second use is you can send enemies to the hotel, can't you, using it? Which is good. I bet when this game comes to Switch and stuff like that, I bet the speed runs are going to be crazy. Because a few of so you go through the gate and you lose your ability, obviously, but through the gate, the level kind of overlaps with itself. So you can kind of reach like another route, despite, you might be able to reach the shield route, despite the fact that you've lost your jump. So you can kind of... There was a couple of times where I was like, oh, maybe I'm not doing this right. I mean, it always worked itself out, but I'd be like, oh, maybe I'm doing this, not the intended way. which was super cool as well. It's the same as Portal, really, isn't it? Like Keith was saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, like speedruns are always always crazy. It's often like the games that you don't think will be a good speedrun game, and then it's just sort of like they find. Well, I remember when like Elden Ring came out, and I was like, oh, I bet they're going to do some like crazy tricks on torrent, like the horse and stuff. And then like they're like, no, they just glitch where they just fly over the map and like warp places. It's like, yeah, they don't even use like the mechanics you would expect they would use in like these speedruns.
Yeah, fair. So you finished the game.
I did finish the game.
You watched the credits as well?
I watched the credits. The very long credits, because this game was Kickstarted, and so they did the credits where they show all of the backers on Kickstarter. So I watched the very long credits.
So there was 4,000 backers, and the game aimed to make £18,000, and it made £204,000. So it really overshot its mark. But because of that, they're adding some other things. Did you see they're adding co-op to the Switch version?
No, I didn't hear about that.
Oh, mate, it has its own levels, and it's really cool because in the
I was going to say
I
couldn't imagine those. Like I bet it's only its own levels, right? Because I don't think you could do co-op
missions. Yeah, but they're doing things like shooting each other with a shrink ray, and like warping each other and stuff like that, which is all pretty cool. And the other dog is a robot, and he's called Mechwell, which is I liked quite a lot.
Yeah. So the main dog's called Maxwell.
Maxwell, Mechwell.
Well, that makes sense.
Pretty cool.
So I did finish it. So I completed it 72%, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming the like I didn't fill in the hotel. Like I guess that's probably a big thing. And then also, as I mentioned, throughout the game, you're meeting a whole bunch of NPCs. And sometimes if you just talk to them, they'll say something funny and you'll get like a friend card from them you're collecting. And then sometimes you have like a little side quest that you need to do for them. And so I didn't collect all of those. Like I collected all the ones that I found and I saw, but I think I missed like 12 or something of them. So I got,
oh wow, God, you did a lot.
Yeah, I mean, so you need at least 50 of them in order to complete the game. And I got to the section where I needed 50. I think I had like 48 or something at the time. And so I just went back and skewed them up. But they're very good at like marking you've got like 5 out of 8 on this planet. So you can very easily see. And then you can look on the map and see. So they're very good at not making you ever in a situation where you're like, I don't know what to do or I don't know exactly what to do. So I'm going to wander until I find it out. Like normally it gives you enough information to kind of point you in the right direction.
Yeah, I agree with you. Once I kind of figured out how the game worked, that didn't become a problem anymore. But because the progression system is so unique, there was a time where I was just like, I don't even know if I'm passing these levels. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm running through the loop, coming back out, getting my gun back. And I'm like, is that done? Like, have I finished that? I didn't realize. And it was only when I saw one of the developers on Twitter answering someone else saying about the notification markers on the gates. And I was like, oh, that's what I meant to be doing. I didn't realize this whole time. I was just running around looking, not knowing where I was going. So there was a few times, definitely to start with, but then maybe also towards the end where the pace of it really did grind to a halt. And it was like, not only do I not know what I'm doing, sometimes you get quite vague instructions from people as well. Like there's a part near the end where you have to get 10,000 shards. And I text you, and you said, "Oh yeah, there's a burger. You can get a job at a burger bar or something, and it doubles your money." Whereas I was like, "I only have 4,000 shards. Like, I'm never going to do this. Like, what's the point? Like, it's not easy to get shards." So
there is a line where they say about like, "Oh, you need way more money. Like, why don't you go like downstairs and engage with capitalism?" Or so there's a line he says.
Yeah, he says, "Why don't you check out the residential area?" I think he says something like that. Maybe capitalism as well. But I was just like, I don't know. It didn't ping anything in my mind to be like, oh, I'm going to be able to literally double my money to get to where I need to be. Because I was like, I'm so
I
far off,
I didn't know that, but I assumed from the way that they said, I assumed there was, because I was probably about the same amount as you had. Like I knew that I would, like I knew I wasn't going to be able to do the same amount of gameplay I just did just to gain it naturally. I knew there would be a time where you get paid a lot, and that bit's quite funny. It's like a unique mini game where basically you're getting scammed to buy this like business, but then you actually make it successful, and you're doing it's like you're holding the burger buns, and there's like meat and like salad wood and stuff dropping, and you're like moving your arms left and right to like catch them, like but like of a really big zoomed up view of like your face. So it was actually kind of one of the funnier moments.
Yeah, because I got stuck there with the yellow key card, like you predicted I would. You were not wrong.
Yeah.
So I watched someone do a complete playthrough of the game. Like I watched that bit, and when he got to that guy, he already had 10,000. So he just bought his way in, and I was like, oh. Like, that's what I need to know. Like, how does he get the money? And that same guy, I watched him finish. Like, I watched the end of the game as well, because I didn't finish it. And by the time he finished, he had 87,000 shards. So he must have been restarting a lot, like to pick up that many.
That's one of the devs.
Yeah,
you watch their playthrough. Yeah, because there was a funny. So you might remember. So I there was a bit, I can't remember exactly what it was, but I got stuck at some point. I wanted to check something. And so I looked on YouTube and saw that there was someone who was doing like a full playthrough of the whole game. And then that's when I was like, oh, I can see how far through the video they are at the point that I am. There's not much of the game left. You might remember I said to you, oh, by the way, it's like way shorter than I thought. But what it was they haven't, like they uploaded these videos like 4 months ago, is they just never uploaded the final part. And so I assumed that was the end. But if you look at like the comments of their videos, it's all people like, can you do like part 3, please? Where's part 3? Like I'm stuck on like this bit. And so I just like took it because it said like full game playthrough. But then they just, I don't know, they just stopped playing for whatever reason. Like I thought I was right at the end of the game when I was probably like 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah. I think it's a good level of challenging. If it wasn't for the time limit of this podcast, I would have finished it. But it was literally got to today, and I was like, I'm not gonna.
Well, will you finish it?
I think I will, but I do also really want to play Pokemon Gold. Silver. I'm Silver. I really want to play Pokemon Silver, so I might. I don't know. I do want to finish it. It's cool. It's really good. I don't know.
I will say the
podcast
final,
games adding up.
Yeah, the ending is cool. It is like I don't think it's mind blowing. There's like the end boss is like a bit of a like puzzle spectacle boss that is like it does something interesting with it, but I could imagine it could also get a bit frustrating, and for me it did get a little bit frustrating. It's like but it really plays in with like that loop mechanic. Basically it's like you're going through and then like they change things slightly, like you're going through, you got to kind of go through like a little obstacle course, and then you shoot the boss, and then it's like, right, we're going to take away your ability to jump, and it's like, okay, now I've got to go through and work out not to jump. So it's kind of nice that like I kind of don't like it with games when they set up, this is the way you play the game, and then you get to a boss fight and it's like, well, now you're in a car, and it's like, well, with this is nothing to do with the skills that I spent this whole time learning. So they don't do that for the final boss.
Yeah, there is a few. I don't even know if it's really fair to call it a misdirection, but I feel like the 10,000 shards is one of them. The bear boss fight, where you don't actually have to do it, you only have to do like a third of it. Because I kept dying, and I was like, I'm never going to do this. Like, no chance of
So basically, like, it's you do damage to it, but you can see you're hardly doing its health bar.
Yeah.
And then if you die, you think, oh, well, I've not even taken away half its health, but like, you actually only need to take away about a third of its health.
Yeah. And the other one is the mine. There's a part where you have to do some mining, and you're collecting shards for the guard, but your cellmate is like, oh, I need you to pick up some objects, but he doesn't tell you how many he needs. So you just keep going in, and you're like, how many am I picking up? Like, how long is this going to go on for? I think I did it in 14 days. I managed to get out, but I was
so
like...
that was like an absolute highlight for me, that bit. I love
it was cool. It was good. It was good.
It's cool. So basically, the whole time you're on a spaceship, and it's basically like a level select screen. You're kind of flying to these different planets, I guess as much as Starfield does with less loading screens. But you have kind of control to like go to all these planets and return to them and stuff. And then you're kind of going to what I thought was like the kind of final zone. And you've got this like, I think you meant to have this like signal blocker thing, so you go through undetected, like a cloaking device. But it doesn't work, and you kind of get captured, and then you're in prison, like wearing like your orange overalls, and they take away all of your stuff, and you're kind of going through this routine, and basically you're kind of becoming like a slave, having to go and like mine for these shards. But I like the fact that like he's saying like, oh, you need to get 150 shards, but it's like, well, they're the bad guys. Like, you don't.
Yeah,
why
yeah,
do you have? Because you don't keep the shards, and so like everything in your kind of gamer mind is saying like collect as many shards as you can. But really, you want to avoid shards because if you reach the right amount, it ends. When what you're really
Right.
trying to do is collect all of like these materials for your mate in the
Yes.
in your cell. And so I kind of liked the way, because like you at first, I was like trying to get the shard that you told me to get, but then if you keep speaking to your cellmate, he's like, "What are you doing?" Like, we need to, like,
No, it wasn't.
make a bomb.
It wasn't that part. It was the. I think what would have helped me is if the cellmate was like, "I need 5 things," and then because when you get them, he doesn't say like, "Oh, I need 3 more." He just says, "Keep going." And you're going
they kind of do that as a bit of a
"Oh my
joke,
God."
though,
And then
because they're making,
the joke at
because
the
he's
end
kind of
is
making
really
a
funny.
comically big bomb. So it's sort of
Yeah.
like you can just see he's got like his device he's making under like a blanket, and it just keeps getting bigger. And he's like, "Yeah, I think we should add more to it." Like,
He was my favorite friend. I think his name
Yeah.
was Bombsy. He was great. He was like, "I need one more thing. It's love." Well, I guess you don't need to collect that, so we can already include it. And then he's got a really good line where they're like, "Oh, don't you think the bomb's a little big?" He's like, "Well, we don't need it this big. I made it this big for personal reasons."
yeah.
What does that mean? It's so
I get-
funny.
The writing in general is good. Like I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't really laugh out loud because I don't really do that playing games. But like I had a smile on my face a lot. Were there any other standout lines that you remember or characters?
I liked Serban. He was like some sort of radish or something. I just thought he was really cool. I also really like the guy who like warns you about the worm. And he's like,
yeah, that's
"Oh,
like
yeah,
his
don't
job,
go."
isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. And at the end of all his lines, he's like, "I hate my job. I really hate this place." And then like you replace it with a sign, you put a sign
Yeah.
saying like worm, and you go back and he's sitting in a deck chair like, this is great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the
Very
guy
charming.
who's like really wants to be a tough guy but isn't a tough guy. You gotta like bring him like
Oh,
tough guy
yeah.
gloves, but he's like not a tough guy. He's like an alligator, I think, at the scrapyard.
Yeah, that's definitely the first half of the game, isn't it? It really is a game of 2 halves. I almost forgot about that because I did that quite a long time ago. But like, once you the cloaking device fails and you go mining the game, I feel like it really changes like quite a lot. Like the final area of the general planets bit is the one with the bells. You know, the bells are like, "Oh, I really want to be wrong. Like, please ring me." Like that level was cool. And then mate, the puzzles as well with the spinning robots things with their hands. Like, that was a
You
great
gotta like
little
match
stage
them
gimmick.
up.
Yeah, that was a good stage gimmick.
Did you complete the one where they're like, "Don't do this one"? Like it's we've put it in here, but ignore it. It's too difficult. Did you see?
Yeah,
that
I did
one?
all of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and then
did
you
them.
go back. If you go back to speak to the person, they're like, "You just went here to like show off, didn't you?" Like you came back here just to like brag that you did it, something like that. And I was like, "Yep."
Yeah. Did you have a favorite planet?
I mean, my favorite moment was that. Like, I know it's such its own thing, but the prison thing, like the fact that you got so much narrative and dialogue, and the fact that like it was so unexpected. In terms of the normal game, I didn't like the one so much that had like I didn't like the one as much like where you go across on the boat, or like there's one where you have to kind of go like almost.
That was hard.
Yeah, or the one where you kind of almost go surfing, where you're kind of like jumping and like sliding down, like the one where you go sliding down water, like it's cool, but like when you're doing several loops and stuff, it's sort of like, oh, I'm repeating this, like not really difficult platforming challenge, but enough that like I'm just trying to get through it, so I'm probably going to fail because I'm rushing it. I didn't like those as much, so yeah, maybe I go with the bell one because you just reminded me of it.
My favorite planet, I think it was called Reverbery or something, and it's the one where you have the little guys. You hit the speakers and they march.
Yes, that was a cool
God,
one. It's like a much smaller planet, wasn't it? But yeah.
Yeah, I could have played a whole game of that. It was so good. And then you're leading them to the exit, and then they like become a little team, and they open the door, and I was like, oh, this is so good. I will say as well, that leaf surfing thing, it's just bad. It's just flat out bad. I was like, God, this is so
you
annoying.
can't see ahead of you enough, I think, to avoid the obstacles. Just makes it a little bit tricky.
Yeah, and like everything in the game, it's like you need technical skill. Like you cannot float through this leaf bit. Well, it's like you're like jumping and shooting, and like you're really having to go for it. And then that last jump shot you have to do, like I think I messed it up like 4 or 5 times. And I was just
it's very easy to shoot just above or below it. Like your jump doesn't naturally line you up with it. So you've got to kind of shoot it on the way up or the way down.
Yeah. But generally, controls, very good.
I didn't like it's going to sound really bad for like a shooting game. I didn't like the shooting. I didn't like the fact that he has to reload, and the fact that like the fact that you don't reload on a button, like because it's a game. If you think of like a shoot 'em up game, think of like Contra or something, and so you shoot like a few shots. At first it's like 2, I think, and then later on you upgrade it to like 5 or something. And so you shoot like da, and then you just wait a bit, and then and it's like sometimes you shoot 2. And then it's like, has it reloaded yet? And I shoot again. It's like, oh, now it does 3, but now it's reloading. Like, I wish I could just endlessly shoot. Like, maybe not hold the button, but like, I wish that they could balance the damage it does or whatever, just to make it so he doesn't need to keep stopping and reloading. I just found that less satisfying.
Yeah, no, I do get what you mean. It was one of those things. It's like you kind of have to learn the knack of it rather than it feeling like it comes naturally. It was like I need to be aware of how many shots I'm firing, and then like watching the little smoke thing. The other thing I would have liked, it wasn't bad that it was missing, because obviously it's not in the game, but the other thing I would have liked is being able to lock your aim. So like say you could lock it at a 45-degree angle and move. That would have been really helpful.
Because you can do it, but you can't move then, right? You hold L?
No, you can't move. Yeah, that's right, yeah. But it's like some little bits where I was like, oh, I could shoot a warp up there if I could jump and do it at the right angle. And I managed to do it a few times, but I was like, this could be easier. It could be easier to do. But generally, I thought the controls were great. Like the fact that it's not annoying to lose your regular jump, I think speaks volumes for how good the controls actually are. And also the amount of things that were like flipping it on its head, where like you have a shield, so it's like, okay, well you can take one hit and then you wait 5 seconds and it'll recharge. So it's like there's a spike pit, but you just walk over it because your one hit means you're invincible. Or when your sword uses your shield charge. So if you swing it twice, you flicker as if you've lost your shield, so you're invincible. So you can like take enemies out by just hitting them and like running around them, and they can't touch you. It was like obviously very, very well thought out, I think.
I also really like the jump when you have like your jetpack thing. It's not really a double jump, but it allows you to jump off a platform. So the way to get distance is you walk off a platform and then jump midair. And I always found that quite satisfying to perform.
Yeah, I did keep forgetting about that though, until there was a few like gem lines that were like obviously. I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. I keep forgetting that I could do that.
And just loads of like just unique. We've said some of them, just like unique kind of. I always say gimmicks. I always say that. What like
scenarios?
Features.
Unique scenarios.
That are kind of thrown in, where it's just on this level there's creatures that you can like talk to, and then they do a backflip and shoot water in the air, and you can use them to boost up. Or like there's so many like little kind of extra like flourishes that are added into each of the different planets that, you know, make them stand out mechanically rather than just aesthetically.
And I think if they hadn't done that, it would still be good. I think it's solid enough foundation that it would still be good, even without
still be a good boy.
Still be a good boy, even without everything having 2 uses, it would still be good. There was a few things I never figured out, like there's these like snake enemies that come out of these like tunnels, and you shoot them back, and then you can go into the tunnel. But then sometimes they would just have like a big head in the tunnel, and I'm like, I don't know how to move it. So I would just turn around and go back out. Did you manage to figure that out? No,
that's on the same level I was just talking about with the water squirt things, right? Those things that are coming out of weird shapes. Yeah, no, I never really fully understand anything about those. So I never really...
And the guy's really cryptic. He's like, oh yeah, all the tunnels are connected, by the way, whatever that means. And it's like, I don't know. So I was like trying to drill through it, and like I was like, maybe I can shrink them so when I get in there, they're really small. But like, yeah, I couldn't figure that out. I think there's also a bonus world at the end. If you 100% it, there's another world as well. So there's like quite a lot of secrets and stuff that we obviously didn't see.
Yeah, it doesn't do... I was curious, would this be a game that ends and then you can carry on exploring, but it doesn't. It ends, then if you reload, you're back to the save point before the boss. So I guess, you know, you could just carry on exploring again before the boss. It's not like it doesn't delete your save or anything. There ain't no Zero Ranger. But it doesn't like... I do like it in games where you can go back and keep exploring, and I think narratively it wouldn't be the end of the world, but I guess maybe kind of people that have to change people's dialogue, I guess, maybe at points.
Yeah, and especially because the NPCs don't leave, I guess every single person would need a new voice line almost, or a typed out voice line. I don't want to be bad boy Galaxy, but have you got any negatives?
Yeah, I do.
do you want
me
to go
to?
first? Yeah.
Yeah, so there's kind of two things that I think are kind of related. So I think the level design isn't great, or I think it's inconsistent throughout. I think there was constantly things I ran into where, like an example is there's a time when there's like a jump that I couldn't make, but I could just not make it. And I was like, normally in games, they either make it so you can obviously not make it, or you can make it. But the fact they made it like so I could almost make it, but I couldn't gradually, like I just couldn't. Like that was annoying. And there was like I think a lot of the problems come through how like limited your view is. Like because the camera is so close, which is why a big reason why the game looks so good. It has these big, colorful sprites with these detailed animations. But because of that, often like I'd find myself cases where like I'm jumping up like platforms and I jump like into an enemy I couldn't see and I die. I'm like, oh, I couldn't, like with my momentum, I didn't have time to react. Or there's even times where like for a puzzle, you have to like shoot like a lever. Oh no, there's like you go inside that worm thing and you have to shoot like the dangly bit to open a gateway. But like the thing you shoot and the gateway aren't on screen at the same time when they're trying to teach you the mechanic. There's a lot of times like that. And I think just in general, like I think the game is more confusing in terms of level design than it needs to be. Like often the puzzle is presented in a way that is more complex than the solution of the puzzle actually is. And you spend a lot more time just like looking and trying to get your bearings and seeing like, because things are so big, like the levels are really feel like kind of cramped in, almost like claustrophobic. It sometimes makes things a little bit more difficult where the actual solution's simple, but you spend a lot of time getting there. And then the map itself, while it's kind of clear with showing like where your critical path is or where there's an NPC to get a friend card from, like it's just quite a bit confusing to look at because it kind of like loops. So like if you keep scrolling left, it will kind of like a Pac-Man maze, it will go back on itself and it's all filled in straight away. Whereas a lot of kind of exploration games, it will kind of gradually fill in. So it's not very easy to see like where you've just come from or like, oh, can I go that way on the map or is it blocked off by something? And so yeah, I think that's kind of my biggest downside is that like I think it controls and looks and sounds great, but sometimes I think the level design is sometimes really good, sometimes average, and in a few kind of rare occasions I think not particularly great.
Yeah, there's a few places where you kind of have to use the gun aim button to look ahead or look up or look down because you can't see. But yeah, I fully agree. Basically, my main downfall of this game is the map is basically unusable because the level is designed amazingly. Like it's so intricately put together and like you can see, oh, that's a path that belongs to another gate and like, oh, how do I get over there? That's all good. But the fact that it loops infinitely makes it so confusing to navigate, especially when you don't realize that it's looping infinitely. And it's like, I kind of feel like the map, maybe there's something they could do where like you have a door going off with the green arrow and then one on the other side with the green arrow, so like, it loops. But it's like I can't even use the map because I can't tell what's going on. So that's quite a fundamental thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not even just the looping, it's the fact that say if I know on the map, oh, I'm trying to get to position B and I'm in position A, like I would think like, okay, like I go down and right and I'd reach it. But you just never know whether that path's open to you with like the abilities you have at the moment or what's there. Like it's never clear. Like they don't like mark off like with a red line if that's like a bit you can't get through because you don't have the ability or whatever right now. So like in the end, I'm like, oh, I guess I'm trying to go up and right, but I'm not even going to try and like plan a path on the map because who knows whether that path that looks open to me actually is.
Yeah, the other thing is because of the looping nature, which, by the way, it loops up and down as well as left and right. So it fully is like go around a sphere, which I guess is quite clever. But it's like you'll see a blue keycard behind a wall to your left, and you'll be like, okay, so do I need to go all the way to the right to loop? But then how far is that? You don't know because it's looping. It's like, is that 3 screens? Is that 8 screens? Is it 1? So you just end up getting disorientated trying to find your way back round. I mean, like, it's obviously not impossible. You finished it, and I got pretty close. But I do feel like it's quite fundamental. That's like, it's quite a glaring issue. Do you know what I mean? And then also, Doomed Citrus on YouTube and Blake in our Discord who played along both were like, I just keep getting lost. So I feel like I'm slightly vindicated that you've also said it. It wasn't just me being like, I'm an idiot. But yeah, I feel like considering the format of the game and the style of the game, it is quite fundamental that it doesn't, I don't want to say it doesn't work, but it's not far off not working. You know?
Especially seen as like, this is a game where like exploration, I think, is one of like the core pillars. Like there's platforming, shooting, and then like exploration. It's not like a game that like Halo, where it's like it's a shooting game. Like, yeah, you might explore a bit, but that's not what it's about. Like it feels like exploring and learning these levels is meant to be one of like the 3 core pillars. And I think it's the weakest one. Because I remember once, because I didn't know what this format of this game was going to be with these gates. And like, because it like you go to like a tutorial kind of area and they explain about going through gates and stuff. I didn't realize that like, oh, that's every level. Like I didn't realize they were setting up for that.
Yeah, I was the same.
And then when I saw like in those first go-throughs, I go through this gate and I'm like, oh, I see. Like I could be here through another gate, but have the jump and I could reach there, but now I can't. It's like, that's really clever. But I also thought like, God, that is like a really difficult design like situation to put yourself in, to design these levels to work with all these players having different abilities, to plan these different loops. I was like, that is an intense like level design challenge they have like taken on here. Like that is impressive. And then by the end I was like, oh, I don't think they fully succeeded. Like I don't I don't want to say like they bit off more than they can chew, or like because that sounds kind of too negative, but it sounds like they set themselves an extremely difficult challenge and like and kind of got like probably maybe 60-70% of the way there. I think they proved the concept, but there's definitely room for kind of optimizing and kind of simplifying the design in some areas to make it a little bit clearer, because it's going to be a hard thing to game test for them. Like they can only take, because it's like for them I bet it's like perfect because they like know it all, but for like someone new who isn't familiar with it, it is a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah, you've explained it perfectly. I think, I don't know, I don't develop video games, I didn't develop this game obviously, but maybe if when you passed off the right side the screen went black and then it faded back into you coming on the left, that might be enough to kind of get your brain thinking, okay, I need to pass through that point. You know, something that signifies you're looping, rather than just running and then, you know, the 4th or 3rd level in being like, oh, I'm back at the start, like not even realizing for that long that it is looping.
Yeah, it's hard because the looping nature is like cool. Like I bet they would have been like, to cover it up with a fade or to do like a gateway or something, like I bet they would be a little bit sad doing that because it's quite cool the way it loops. Yeah. But the downside, you know, but like that's not worth the sacrifice for like the player.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I really felt that. I think maybe a tutorial, a more clear tutorial might have, I don't know how you'd fix it, because it is so intricately designed and it is so clever, but at the same time it's too clever.
I think a better map, and I think I think it just comes down to just better game design. I think it could work with this exact structure and format. Like so in this interview with Rick, is it Nicole Nicol? Yeah. Nicole. So he was saying about so him and Jeremy Clark were like the 2 main developers. They had other people that kind of came in and helped in different areas. Like they did some of the music, but some people did other music and like translations and stuff. But they were like kind of the main 2 like designers, artists, programmers. And so in that, he was talking about how they actually have quite drastically different styles of game design. And so Rick was saying that like he really likes to keep things simple. So his background is on mobile games. And so he was really, I mean, both of them are to extent, but I think especially Rick. So he was talking about how he likes to keep things simple and clear, whereas Jeremy likes to make things a little bit more tricky and complex. And so like obviously we don't know kind of who designed like which areas of the game, but I wonder whether the fact that there's inconsistency is maybe that's just down to like for who kind of was like the lead design of each section, possibly. Like I'm completely speculating here, but but like I did notice, like before listening to this interview, I listened to it yesterday, like I was like, oh, some of these levels do really kind of feel very clear and like I know exactly what I need to do and like it all makes sense. And then other times I'm just there like, wait, what? Like, and like I always end up kind of
Yeah.
stumbling my way through it, but I feel like I am almost like by chance stumbling my way through it rather than like taking it all in and like solving it.
Yeah, I feel like, the first half of the game almost was like more of a puzzle platformer, and the second half was almost like an open world. Like the scale and everything changes so much. So yeah, there's obviously two very different styles in there. I mean, God, I think it was harder to navigate than Portal. And that game's about like looping and flying through tunnels and stuff. And like some of the puzzles on this were harder than that. You don't even have a portal gun.
Well, it's much more open. Like Portal locks you in a room, and like you mentioned in the podcast, there's no red herrings in Portal. Like in Portal, it locks you into a room, and it's like everything here you're going to use to solve the puzzle. Whereas this, it's like, even though the planets, I'm sure, by like square meters aren't huge, they're so dense and there's so much in them, and you never really know like, oh, I need to get up there. Do I need to do like a whole loop down to reach there, or do I need to reach that point from like one of the other gates? Like there's so many different like things in the game and angles of approach. Like it's very rarely a case of like, oh, I'm in this room and I like have 4 switches that I need to press. Like it's much more like, oh, it's like a planet-wide puzzle almost.
Yeah, for sure. Right, well, I mean, let's not finish on negative. Like graphics amazing, writing amazing, weapons clever, design pretty clever. It's I think it's good. This is a good game, and if you like puzzle platformers, you'll definitely find a lot.
Yeah. And once again, the only thing I'll say is that this is obviously, we played the Game Boy Advance version. You were mentioning earlier that obviously like the Switch version and any other kind of ports they do in the future will be in widescreen.
Yes.
I would wonder whether widescreen, like how much that would help. Like if they, because I'm assuming they're not going to stretch the sprites out. Like I think you're going to have more kind of screen real estate to hopefully see like more space around the player. I would wonder maybe with that and co-op, if you are interested, maybe hang around to see what the Switch release looks like, because that I think could be a big help, being able just to see more around you.
Yeah. Also, like just on the fact that it's coming to the Switch, like obviously we played it on the Analog Pocket. We had a few people in the community. Blake played it on a 3DS. We had Retrobit1 on Twitter said they were playing on a 2DS, which is all cool, but I can't imagine playing on a PC. I don't think it would be the same. Like I just feel like you need to kind of be playing it in handheld for it to be like.
I mean, I played it on a TV with a controller.
Yeah, true.
And
true.
those I was playing it on like a big like 4K TV, and it looked great. Like it looked like I preferred my time. I basically had 1 week playing on the TV and then 1 week playing it like traveling on the Analog Pocket. And I do think it is better suited for a smaller screen kind of headphones experience. But like those, like that artwork blown up big, like it holds up. Like it's super. This game looks and sounds amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Do you want to do some questions?
Yeah.
Okay, so Textbook Ducky on YouTube says, if this game came out during the early 2000s, do you think it would do well? I would answer that with a resounding yes. I feel like it's so far ahead of any other Game Boy Advance game I've played. People would probably be going mad. This would probably be like, you know what Braid was like? This potentially could have been like that. Like people would be like, it wouldn't be like Metroidvania anymore. It would be a Goodboy Galaxy, like potentially. Yeah. It's that good, I'd say.
And it would be considered like the kind of mobile or portable gaming's equivalent of AAA as well. Like it wouldn't like I think now obviously you look at it and you think indie game, but no, this is what Game Boy Advance games were like with Capcom making them, or Nintendo or whatever. It's also worth noting is they made this in 2 years, and so they plan to make it in 1 year, which seems crazy. But like if I was told, hey, this game was made by mostly 2 people and they've been working on it for like 6 years, I'd be like, oh yeah, no, I can see that. Like I can see where that work's gone into. The fact that they were able to like do this in 2 years with all of the challenges of making it run for Game Boy Advance as well, like they must be very talented to be able to put something as complete and polished as this in 2 years. Like that is an incredible achievement.
You could almost see in the game, the Kickstarter getting extended. It's like, oh, we've added a fishing minigame, and it's like, oh, okay, I bet you didn't originally.
That's what made me think of it, is all of that like extra stuff is like, it feels like, when games like kind of get feature creep and they keep it like, and we could do this and we could do this, and it means that like the budgets go up and it takes longer and longer and it goes into development hell. It feels like they did all of those wrong decisions of trying to add too much. There's like a minesweeper mini game in here. Like there's so like you can change the background of the menus. There's all this stuff that they added in. It feels like they should have gone like way over schedule and budget, but like and I guess technically for them they did, but the fact that they still managed to make it in 2 years is crazy. They must be super efficient.
Well, yeah, I mean, they made over 10 times what they planned to on, which is great. I'm good for them. I'm not saying it in a negative way. They made it over 10 times what they wanted. Also, I think the highest tier, or one of the higher tiers of backing, 230 quid, you could design one of the NPCs. And I suspected as much. When I was looking at the NPCs, I was like, I bet these are backers, because there's so many of them. I was like, there's no way they would spend this long designing all of them if it wasn't done by other people.
Can I say one of my favourite one quick?
Oh, yes, please do.
Yeah, so I don't know their name, but it's not even my favourite character. It's just like my funniest interaction. Is like there's just this snake creature, which is just like a snake, basically, and you just chat to it for a bit, and then it just says, "Thanks for listening to an old woman's tale," and you're like, "Oh, I didn't realize you were old or a woman." It just looks like a snake. It's so funny. It's like, oh, thanks for listening to like an old woman's tale. Like that really made me laugh.
Yeah, nice. Okay, I'm Pain for real on YouTube. We're a hardcore username. Asked, on a scale of 1 to 10, how good is the boy?
Extremely good. The good one of the goodest boys I've ever played as in a game. Maybe the goodest boy.
Yes, beautiful animations. Man, that animation of him spinning, flying off of a jump, pure joy. His tongue bouncing around in the helmet. And
he's gone to like save his home world, and so he's a good boy. We didn't really speak about the story much. It's not the focus. It's much more about the interactions with the specific characters, but there is kind of an overarching story, but it is mainly kind of bookended, like primarily at the beginning and end of the game.
Yeah. Kai the Pie on YouTube says, I have to ask, do you regret doing this instead of Mario 64?
I don't.
I don't either. I think we made exactly the right choice. We did exactly the right thing. Bang into it. Awesome. Good. We're together on that. Retrobit 1. Oh, sorry, we already done that one. They played on the 2DS, which is good. Oh, Prairie Ranger on YouTube said, if you were making a video game that was limited by old hardware, what console would it be? And for me, give you a chance to think, I don't know if we ever needed to go beyond the PS2. I was so happy with that. Yeah, I would just make it for the PS2. The PS2 had some great games. Right about a scope, we wouldn't be getting all these layoffs. Like, we just stick with the PS2. Everyone would be happy. I would be happy with that. They could HD it, maybe higher output, but keep it. The model quality is the same. I think. But if I was like, PS2.
So let's say in this hypothetical, like we are game designers and we know how to make games, and we wanted like to challenge ourselves for going for old hardware. I feel like PS2, because I know obviously it is like super old, but like you could probably make a game that's not a million miles off a modern game. Like I feel like I'd want to go older the purpose is to restrict. Like I would kind of like to go original Game Boy. I think would be a fun challenge. I mean, anything would be a challenge for us, but like if I did know, like I like I think that is such limited. I like not Game Boy Color, like black and white, like or whatever, single tone. Original Game Boy, no backlight. That would be like a really fun design challenge.
Yeah, I just like the scope of PS2 games. It's like you get a 12-hour story and you're expected to play through it 5 times. That's fine by me. Okay. Oh, Jamie on Twitter, not a question, but they said that they are abstaining from playing the game because they have bought a physical version, or they're getting a physical version, which is pretty cool. For their Game Boy
Advance. You won't be disappointed.
You will not be disappointed. That is everything. I think it's list time.
Okay, let's put it on the list.
Did you know we have a Patreon? Maybe you're unsure what that is.
Patreon allows you to support us directly, and in return you get exclusive stuff. Access to our Discord server, behind-the-scenes content, and an exclusive podcast series.
Your support means we can up our production and continue making fun videos. You can join us at patreon.com/thebonuspoints. And it has a free trial too.
Woohoo!
Right, I was holding on to this amazing fact. I don't know why, because the longer I hold on to it, the less amazing it seems. But I think Goodboy Galaxy is a reference to Goodbye Galaxy, which is a Commander Keen game. Did you realise that?
I did, because when I was trying to look up the Wikipedia page for Goodboy Galaxy, it comes up with that. Did you see that?
That's how I realised, yeah. And also thinking about Commander Keen, and it used to be 2D, I was like, that's probably where they're coming from.
I wonder if that's confirmed here. So also Ollie mentioned in between this that the devs retweeted that we're going to be doing Goodboy Galaxy. So
they did.
There's a chance they're watching. If you are watching, let us know if that is a reference or a coincidence. We'd love to know.
Yes, for sure. Right, list time. Have you got any little things you want to move around first? I don't, before you ask me. Just wondering if you might.
Yeah, I do actually.
This is unplanned, audience. This is actually unplanned. Okay, go on.
So I've been thinking it for a while, but I didn't want to do it last week when Keith was here because we'd spoken long enough that time anyway. But I think when we're getting super nerdy with games that we've played, it's best to do it when it's just us. But it's quite a big one. I want to move Tears of the Kingdom up back up to number 3 above Alan Wake 2.
Do you want to move it up because it's the representative of Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, or do you want to move it up because it's Tears of the Kingdom?
It's on Tears of the Kingdom's merit. So, well, one thing is I do think that like Nintendo and some other developers are almost held to like a different standard. And like if that came out from anyone else, what the perspective was. And then also I watched their GDC talk where they kind of spoke a little bit about how the game was designed, and they were talking a lot about like audio and how the audio is driven by physics, and they were like showing like the cart being driven down the road, and they're like, listen to the sound of it, and they're like, did you know that there's actually no sound effect for a cart? It's just the sound of like the wheels, like friction on the ground and the chain, but it's all like the pace is designed so it sounds like rhythmic and it like goes with the music. And I was like, they're thinking of games in a way no one else is. They're like, and here's like someone's made a paddle boat, but of course there's no sound for a paddle boat, but it's just like the physics driven sound. And I was like, God, there's so much stuff that we just completely take for granted, like in this game that like I didn't like even consider. And they spoke about all of the challenges making Ultra Hand and all of the things work, and they showed it not working and all of like the horrible physics nightmare that the game could have become, and they somehow avoided it being it. And I was like, God, this is like, even forgetting it in terms of a game and story and soundtrack and all of like the Zelda-ness, just as like a sandbox to like build things in. If it was just on like a grey box flat world and you could just build things in it, like it would still be like one of the most impressive games ever. But then it's wrapped in all of like this like beautiful world and music. Like I was just like, man, that is, I know it's number 4 out of 62 at the moment, but like I really love Alan Wake 2, but I do feel like Zelda probably should go up 1.
So you're telling me they didn't make music for a cart or a paddle board?
They didn't make like sound effects.
Lazy developers relying on created content by the player for that. No, that is amazing. That's really impressive. Also, not to be negative about Alan Wake, but I was thinking earlier on like, the Alan Wake 2 DLC is coming out, and I was like, why am I not more excited about that? I was like, I'm excited, but number 3 on the list excited? I don't know.
I wonder if you'll go through a journey I did where with the Elden Ring DLC, which I always knew I was going to play, but I wasn't like hyped. It's my favorite game, Elden Ring. But then I saw the trailer and I was like, oh, no, I'm in. And now I'm like replaying Elden Ring to get ready for it. Like it's sort of, I wonder if when you see a trailer for the Alan Wake 2 DLC, you'll be like, it will remind you of why that game is so good. Yeah.
Okay, I'm happy for the swap. Let's do it. Yeah, sorry about that, everyone. Joe had a bird flying around his office for audio.
Yeah, it's all right. I've killed it now.
He's killed it. He's not even vegan.
I've crushed it. It's fine.
He crushed it in his jaws. Okay, Goodboy Galaxy. What are we doing with this? As I said earlier, I feel like its closest brother on the list is Carrot Blaster, but I think it's a lot better than Carrot Blaster.
I agree.
Like it to be a lot higher than that. That's 44.
Yeah, so let's look at. So Kira Blaster's at 44. Let's keep going up. Above Survival Kids, I would say above Zero Ranger.
I think in terms of the pure joy that I had playing the game, it and Zero Ranger are very similar. I think Zero Ranger's down way too low, personally. So I'm happy to go above it, but in terms of the joy, it's similar. But I'm thinking 20 to 30.
Okay. So 20 is
thinking?
Pikmin 4, 30 is League of Legends.
Yes.
So we've got Mr. Driller Drill Land at 29, Ooblets at 28, Jet Set Radio Future at 27, and then the original Alan Wake at 26.
I think maybe between Jet Set Radio and Ooblets.
So that would be 28.
Yes, it would be 28. Yeah. Jet Set Radio quite similar in a number of ways. Great looking game, confusing level design, doing something unique with platforming and doing different things and abilities.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's so, that area, I think specifically for me, is so all over the place in terms of, it's so different to how I would order it. It's because for me, I would absolutely put this above Jet Set Radio.
Maybe we need a list amnesty episode where we just go for it. Because this is getting
What do you mean?
This middle section, 26 to 50 is getting hard. We throw a lot of stuff in 26 to 50 and just kind of forget about it. We need to have a bit of a sort out. We need to do a charity shop run of a clear out of the cupboard and figure out what's going on in 26 to 50.
Maybe we need a podcast of just tidying.
Yeah.
I think the thing is we just disagree on stuff. I don't even disagree. I guess disagree. We just have different preferences. It's not like I don't think you're wrong for liking Jet Set Radio Future more than me, but I think the game plays bad.
What about let's not get, because I've also every week I look at Zero Ranger and think it's too low, and that's not just because the style of game it is. I've kind of fallen out of favor with that style of game because we're doing the podcast and I'm having to play a different game every 2 weeks rather than only playing shmups. But I still think Zero Ranger was very special, and we've kind of delegated it down to 39. It just keeps dropping, but we don't need to worry about that now. Goodboy Galaxy is today's problem. Where are you thinking then?
Yeah, so I'm thinking above League of Legends.
Yep.
Which is at 30. And then I think I preferred Ooblets, but then I preferred Goodboy Galaxy over Jet Set Radio Future. And I would say I preferred Alan Wake 1. So I'm in a very similar area to you. So I wonder if there's some...
Let's just put it between Jet Set Radio and Ooblets.
Yeah?
Yeah? Easy. Why debate? Why argue about it?
I wasn't trying to debate. I was just that was my first... As always, I never look at the list or think about it before here. So that was just me internalizing to work it out.
I'm also thinking I can stand there and, obviously we have 63 games on this list now. I think 28 is a good place for Goodboy Galaxy.
Oh, I mean, look at the games it's above.
Yeah.
it's above BioShock 2, XCOM 2, it's above Skyrim, it's above Warcraft 2, Halo Infinite, Tasmanian Tiger. Come on. Right.
Yeah, I think that's a good place. Do you want to read it out?
Yeah, let me read it out for audio listeners just so they know kind of exactly how this has ended up. So I go from 25 to 30. So I go from 30 up. So at 30, we got Mr. Driller Drill Land. At 29, Ooblets. At 28, the new game we've just added, Goodboy Galaxy. At number 27, Jet Set Radio Future. Number 26, Alan Wake. And at number 25, What Remains of Edith Finch.
Which you may have noticed I had to abbreviate to fit into the screen. So it's now Edith Finch.
I took a glance at it and from my head went to the rally games, World Rally
WRC.
WRC. I just saw that and I was like, we didn't do a rally game, did we? Have I just forgotten about a game we did?
Oh, don't leak what's coming up. Right. Well done. Goodboy Galaxy. 28. Very respectable entry on the list.
Is it? If you had to make a guess before playing the game, which I know is super difficult, especially because we didn't know much about it, where would you have guessed it would have ended up on the list? Is that higher or lower, or
definitely
about the same
higher.
as what you'd expected?
That's definitely higher. It was way more interesting than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be much more like Metal Slug, Cuphead. Amazing games. I'm saying them flippantly, but they're amazing games. But I thought it'd be a lot more like, you don't really need to think too much about it. It's more run and gun. And I'm happy that it's much more on the puzzle side.
Yeah, because I know you're much more of a fan of those run and gun games. I think, which is back to Zero Ranger. I know it's not run and gun. It's, kind of overhead shoot 'em up, but like those games I kind of much more associate with you rather than me, whereas I'm all about kind of the exploration and kind of a bit vagueness and kind of like working out like how the game itself works. And so like you, I was really glad with that. We kind of even realized it a little bit like in that video, that Hype Train video, when we were first looking at it, and I was like, oh, like it's really cool that it's like this modern game for the Game Boy Advance, and it's a really like interesting thing that they're doing, and like I like the idea you play as like a good boy like dog, and like it seemed cool, but I was like, at the end of the day, you're just going to be running and gunning, right? And then we kind of scrolled through and we kept just seeing like little like GIFs of different sections of gameplay, and I was like, oh, no, they're doing a whole bunch of like weird and interesting things in here as well. And so that's kind of what allowed it to win, to be added to the list. So GG Maxwell, welcome to the list, number 28. Very well done. Good boy.
Also, interestingly, I noticed the other day when I was sorting this list out, I do it off air because it takes so long, that the first game we ever did, The Forgotten City, is as close to the center of the list as it could ever be at the moment. Isn't that crazy? Every single game we've done, half and half, is either as better than or worse than The Forgotten City.
It's perfect because it set our baseline. It's like, this is like the baseline, like average game for the list, and we will compare everything else to be either better or worse than The Forgotten City. Well, because then we had Disco Elysium, which was right at the top. And then Onimusha, which has moved up a little bit now, but was a little bit lower down for a while. So we covered all bases pretty early on.
Yeah. Would you like to hear what's coming up?
Yes, please do.
I foolishly did not prepare a list, but I do have the calendar open, so I can just read it off the calendar. So 31st of May, Harold Halibut. Brand new game, currently on Game Pass. Is it multi-platform? I think it is, right?
I don't know.
It's on Game Pass.
You carry on reading. I will have an answer by the time you've read them all.
Okay, that's 31st of May. Then on the 14th of June, we have Zone of the Enders 2. Really out there pick that I'm kind of regretting. We should have done Pokemon first, but I'm committed now. So Zone of the Enders 2 is coming up on the 14th of June. Then the 28th of June, we have Pokemon Gold and Silver. The originals. You're doing Gold, right? I'm doing Silver. Someone commented and said, why did we pick the worst Pokemon game first? If you'd like to let me know.
Well, Gold and Silver?
Yeah, apparently, yeah.
They're pretty beloved. Like, I mean, they're not like, I don't know them that well, but they're like beloved, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
We could have played the new one, whatever that's called, Violet, whatever it is. In that,
Scarlet and Violet, yeah. And then the last confirmed one we have is on the 12th of July. We've got Skate 1 with a guest, and that is available to buy on any of the Xboxes that you can get hold of now. So there we go. That's what's coming up.
And Harold Halibut is available on everything apart from Switch.
That makes sense. But it is also on Game Pass, so if you have Game Pass, then you can play it.
Yeah, and I've already started it.
I've started it too, mate. I have to say, for the podcast, it is astonishing. Wow, I mean, man, because I kind of stayed away from trailers from it, like looking at it on the TV, I was like, this looks fantastic. So yeah, that's what's coming up. Get ready. Okay,
cool. And then in terms of just bonus points in general, any fun kind of like game nights coming up on Discord or kind of any other one-off videos you want to shout out?
Well, the bonus points Discord, we're now having more, because Discord's added a new feature where you can add game nights regularly, so you get scheduled in every week automatically. So we currently have Lethal Company running. That's only running for like 2 more weeks though, because that's run for like 23 weeks in a row. Community member Elodie's run that. We've got Fortnite every fortnight. It's called Once a Fortnight, the event. Thank you, Muppet, for sorting that out. And also Sea of Thieves is starting up and it's bubbling under the surface. I think they've had 2 sessions of that. So yeah, game nights at the Discord, super cool. So if you want to join that, go to patreon.com/bonus points. Join in the fun.
Yeah, and then all sorts of one-off games and kind of special nights and things kind of always popping up on there as well. I've done some Quake nights playing Quake Champions. If you've ever wanted to play Quake Champions, then
Mad.
it's quicker to join us than it is to try and find a game with randomers with the matchmaking on that thriving free-to-play game.
Yeah. Also, everyone's like, they're very welcoming, but they're all really good. They seem to be good at every game. So it always surprises me. I think I'm good at games and they whoop me at everything. So there we go. Any of your upcoming videos you're editing, Joe, do you want to mention them or not?
Yeah, I guess I won't be specific, but I'll just say we got like a couple more in-person videos because traditionally a lot of our stuff was kind of done online, but now we've got a new camera thanks to all of the support that we've been getting on Patreon. We were able to get a new camera, and so we are eager and giddy to use it as much as possible at the moment. So we have some of fun, silly videos where we might look a little bit weird with our get-up, but I will say no more than that. But if you do only listen to the audio version of the podcast, maybe over the next kind of couple months, check in with the YouTube every now and then and kind of see what else we've been getting up to outside of this main podcast.
I went to see my dad at the weekend, and he talks to me about, he's a bonus points listener. He listens to the audio. I don't think he watched all the videos, but he was like, "You should do another archery video." So I was like, okay, well, just keep an eye on what's going on. He loved the archery video. Yeah, he loved that video. Right, I think that's us. I think that's everything.
Cool, awesome. So, thank you everyone so much for listening. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time from when this was uploaded to discuss Harold Halibut. It's a game with kind of, as I say, if you've got Game Pass, you can play it for free, inverted commas. And it's a game which there's very little challenge to it. So it's kind of, if you're someone who kind of just enjoys mainly narrative-driven games, this will be a perfect one for you. And because it's story-based, it's one that we'd definitely love to get a bunch of comments in with kind of people's either questions for us or comments. So please do join us for Harold Halibut. But apart from that, thank you all so much for watching or listening, and we'll see you all later. Bye!
Cheers, everyone. Bye.